Hello, everyone. I am Krooked, and I do stuff, and this is Unscripted, the series where I take a completely unscripted look at games and give it a 1 through 10 rating. And today, we are playing Mega Man X3. Now, if you've seen my other videos, you already know I'm a Mega Man fan. I have a tattoo of Zero. This is one of my favorite series of all time. This game and I have a special relationship where this was the first game I ever emulated. I learned how to emulate because of this game. And the reason why is I had only gotten to play it a handful of times when I was a kid. We would go to our local rental store, Major Video, because we didn't have Blockbuster until Blockbuster bought out Major Video, and I would rent this game. Well, eventually, like I said, Blockbuster bought out Major Video, and they were starting to phase out Super Nintendo games. So I went, and they had Mega Man X3 for sale. It was like $15-20. It was a great price. And I took it up to the counter, and the guy said, "Oh, this isn't for sale, sorry." And as we walked out, we saw him buy the game with his own money, and yeah, I was pissed. So I ended up emulating this to be able to play it. I bought a gamepad and everything, and it became my favorite as a kid. Because, well, as you're about to see, in this game, you get to play as Zero, which this was everything. But I was a little upset because it wasn't his theme from Mega Man X. It was just the new Zero theme, which is still okay. It's just not as good as his theme in Mega Man X. So yeah, Little Krooked tried to buy it, wasn't able to. The guy screwed him over, and it led me to a life of pirating Mega Man games. Oh no! So, after that, there was a shop in Reno, where I'm from, where there was something called the Ultimate Game Room. It was called Game Force, and the owner said I can come anytime and play it, and if he ever got a copy of X3 in, he'd sell it to me for a reasonable price. That unfortunately never happened. So what I had to do, shout out to East Starland. If you don't know, they're the best retro game dealer you will ever find. And this is back in like 2001, I think. They had a copy of Mega Man X3 for $80. And I snatched that up as quickly as humanly possible. Nowadays, I don't love it as much as the other games, but let's see if there's anything that makes it score as high as Mega Man X, or even as high as X2, which, as you know, X2 is one of my favorite games, and my controller just broke, so hold on a second. Okay, that was kind of wild. So, with this game, if you remember, or if you didn't see it, I rated Mega Man X as a 10. Mega Man X2 is an 11 because, well, it's better than Mega Man X in every way. Improves on the game in every single way. So, with this, starting off the game, you have no more powers than you do in Mega Man X2. So, in Mega Man X, you didn't start with the dash. In X2, you started with the dash. In X3, you start with the dash. There's nothing here that wasn't in X2 at the beginning, so that was already kind of something that's a letdown to me. Because if I'm playing Mega Man X, I've already been given the standard of it changes and improves every single game. This hasn't done that yet. So we get to, the actual screen here, and remember that whole thing where you got to see the level information and stuff? Yep, nope, that's not a thing anymore. I didn't want to go here. but that's not a thing anymore. Graphics-wise, it looks really good. It looks just as good as any of the Mega Man X games that we looked at previously. But I have a lot more of a problem with this one because you'll already notice that the enemies we're running into are all the enemies that we ran into in X and X2. And that's where the problems begin, because every enemy we're going to run into in this game, for the most part, is in X and X2. They didn't really change much up from the last two games. And it almost feels lazy. They did put in a lot more mini-bosses into the levels, which is kind of nice, but if you're looking at the level design of these games, it also feels lazy. There's a lot of different things in this compared to X and X2, though. So I said that they didn't add much, and they didn't. But what they did add is pretty cool. So in X, you got a ride armor for... Well, you got to see Vile in her ride armor. And you kind of got one in Sting Chameleon's level. In X2, you got one in Wheelgator's level, and it was really, really awesome because you had, like, spikes on it and stuff, and that was cool. In X3, you have access to 4 different ride armors. And the 4 different ride armors are based off of the ones from X, X2, and then they added a couple new ones for X3. The balancing of this game is off. Just off. If you notice, the enemy hit me and took out a quarter of my life, and that was just a normal enemy, and that's kind of the standard for this game. Enemies hit you for a ton of health. But you can mitigate some of that, because not only can you play as X, but you can play as Zero. Zero shows up and just look at that health bar. Awesome. And he plays just like X, except he can store a charged shot and a charged slash. His slash kills basically anything with one hit. So at this point, you're probably like, okay, cool. So I'm not going to play as X. Why in the world would I ever play as X in this game? Because Zero's so much cooler. And for anyone who doesn't know, Zero was originally supposed to be the hero of Mega Man X. But he was too different, and people were like, hey, no, let's have it be Mega Man. Have him be, like, Mega Man's bestie. So, as you see, I get to the boss and Zero dips. Every single time. Except one, way later in the game, where if you get a bunch of special armor pieces, you unlock Zero Z-Saber for X. Pretty cool. Except again, the balancing on this game is awful. Enemies do so much more damage than in the previous games. You do next to nothing. If I remember right, it's like a normal laser lemon's supposed to do 1 damage to a boss. That one's supposed to do like 2 or 3, and then the actual charge I think is supposed to do like 3 or 4. And with this, that's not how it happens. I just hit him with a fully charged X-Buster shot for 2 damage. Whereas his one attack hit me for almost half my health bar. Most of these bosses are almost impossible without doing a lot of different things. So if my life bar was full, I'd be able to take more hits, but he would still be doing an absolutely insane amount of damage every single turn. So already you have sound that is in a lot of ways the same as, well, Mega Man X and X2. You have controls that are the same as X and X2. You have graphics that are the same as X and X2, but the gameplay is slightly worse because enemies are harder, you're weaker, and it doesn't make sense. There's no reasoning for why these changes were put into effect. So that's really it. That's bad, right? You know, some bad level design and some imbalancing issues. Well, no. Because even the parts of this that do end up pretty good aren't really that good. Collecting armor for Mega Man in this isn't nearly as awesome as before, because there's like multiple armor sets and they do different things, and if you get the wrong armor set you can't unlock Zero Z-Saber, and there's like a gold armor which is cool, and there's some that are just dumb. They feel like ideas that they had for the game, but they didn't decide which one they actually wanted in the game, so they just threw them all in and said, yeah, you get to pick and choose. I managed to beat him, which I didn't think that would happen. But there's just so much recycled in this game and nothing new at all. Generally, the Rhino is the one that I fight first. Charger Rhino, I think his name is. He'll tell us. Tunnel Rhino. Yeah, Tunnel Rhino. What a dumb name. But if you look at this stage, it's like half Morph Moth and half like Chill Penguin's layout. And overall, there's just so much in this that feels like it's incomplete, or like they didn't know what they wanted to do, so they just used a bunch of assets and called it a day. My problem with that is this is a sequel to one of the best sequels to ever exist. And it's a worse off game, and it feels bad. There is a PlayStation version which has some nicer graphics a little bit, but it's still mostly the same game, and it only came out in Japan. So you have this game, and it's not as good as the ones that came before it. And combine that with the fact that it was a really rare game, and you just have the perfect combination of something that people didn't buy, people didn't play, and when they finally did, they went, ugh, what is this? And that's really what Mega Man X3 feels like. There's just so much wrong with it that you're better off going back and playing Mega Man X or Mega Man X2. There are also 5 games that came after this in the Mega Man X series. How good are they? Well, you know, Unscripted. We're going to check them out. But when it comes to Mega Man X3, it's really hard to give this game a lot of points. It feels like a cheap imitation of the games that came before it, without much of the charm. I do have to give some special shout-outs, though, because Toxic Seahorse has, like, phenomenal music. But outside of that, and the music in general, there's not much in this game. Even the Sigma fight just is basically a rehash of the Sigma fight from Mega Man X in a different way. So, when it comes to scores for Mega Man X3, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. It's okay. It plays like a Mega Man X game. If you've already done everything you can do in Mega Man X and Mega Man X2, check it out. But you're probably not gonna love it, and you might leave it going, I don't want to play this game again. And if you do, no one's gonna be upset or not understand, because really, it's not that great. But if you like this video more than I liked Mega Man X3, go ahead and hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button so that way you never miss out on an episode of Unscripted. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so that way you'll be notified when a new episode does come out. And with all that being said, I do want to thank you for watching Unscripted, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye!